Well, good morning, you scum, and welcome back to HMP. I hope you're ready for the March of Time, because this week we're covering Time Bandits from 1981. I'm your host, Adam Porters, and joining me today, he's the author of Smoke Yourself Thin and Get Confident, Stupid. Please welcome the Hartford Hellion, Sweet Shansa Kovacs from the internet.
This movie has the best tagline. They didn't make history, they stole it.
And outside of the nose and the hairpiece, he's fine. Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and there's no time like the time of legends.
No, and we have all the time in the world. Actually, we're just about an hour. That's about how we don't do these shows. We've learned that people don't want 6-hour shows generally here. So we are going to take your time into consideration as we cover 1981's Time Bandits from Terry Gilliam. This is one, again, thank you to the people over at patreon.com/HMP. Those people get to, talk about what we do, and you guys wanted us to do all kinds of time travel stuff this month, so we've got a whole bunch planned for you in the coming month. And if you want to find out what all of those are, head on over to patreon.com/HMP. Pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone, all that good stuff. And Time Bandits was one I wanted to kind of knock off my bucket list because for whatever reason, I hadn't seen this movie. Now, granted, 1981, I was negative 1 year old, so pretty impossible for me to see the film in theaters for sure. And oddly enough, I never really saw it growing up either, but I think part of that may just also come down to the fact that I was a scaredy cat kid. I got scared of stuff, and I watched this movie, and I just go, yeah, 9-year-old Adam probably, parts of it I would have been okay with, but the other parts I would have been like, no. And this movie goes a little bit hardcore for a little kids movie and stuff, but the 80s were a different time, though, weren't they?
That's what they say.
Bruce, is this one of those movies that was constantly on HBO? I don't remember it on HBO.
I think that it was on enough. I don't think it was constantly, but I remember it being like, even on things like TBS and WGN, because this was considered a children's movie. So I remember watching this with commercial breaks. So, some of those cable channels.
Yeah.
This movie is literally the reason why Terry Gilliam was making movies until like the early 2000s, because this is probably his most successful movie, right? You would think, because they made it for no money. They made it for $5 million, I think, and George Harrison put up all the money. And
I feel like this is what he made to convince them to let him make Brazil.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly what happened. Because of this movie, he made Brazil afterward.
Because let's be honest, if somebody came to you straight out with Brazil and just goes, I want to do this, your response would be, no, we're not doing that.
That's what happened. He shopped it at every single studio at the time, and everybody's like, we're not giving you money to make that movie.
I was like, this is weird.
So after he makes Time Bandits, and it's a proven like financial big success. I mean, it was a huge success at the time. Then George Harrison didn't have to try to mortgage his business so that he could give Terry Gilliam the money to make a movie again. And he made Brazil, which I don't think this is a controversial opinion, but I think that Brazil is still my favorite Terry Gilliam movie. It's just so one of its kind. Like, you can't out Brazil, and everybody every couple years they try to, and like something comes out like Loki, where the Time Variance Authority is clearly influenced by Brazil, and it's like, oh, that's how, like, it became its own speak. Like, oh, you're trying to make Brazil here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's why I love Brazil. And don't get me wrong, I think Time Bandits is a great movie. But to me, Gilliam's best is always going to be Brazil.
I would have liked to have seen his Watchmen.
Yeah, me too. But I have a sneaking suspicion what a lot of those special effects would look like.
Yes,
a lot of really bad mats.
a lot of the special effects in this movie are kind of like it's kind of like watching like an old episode of Nova.
It's charming though. I think that they're charming because
without
that this
a doubt.
is its time.
Without a doubt.
Dr. Manhattan's just sitting on a black cyclorama just talking about Mars.
The effects were stepped up on Baron Munchausen.
Were they?
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't think that they were.
In a long time.
Look, I love all three of his imagination movies. Like, I love them. including Baron Munchausen. Like, I think all three of those movies are so unique and of one, that I think these movies aren't for everyone. Clearly, they're not. But I think that if you are interested to see, like, this is what originality looks like. Like, if you're interested in that, these are the movies for you. And I think that it starts with Time Bandits and it ends with Baron Munchausen.
Yeah. Oh, well, all right, let's get into it. Here's the IMDb plot line for Time Bandits. As we know, IMDb always 100% correct in everything they say and or do. A young boy accidentally joins a band of time-traveling dwarves as they jump from era to era looking for treasure to steal. Not too shabby, IMDb. Not too shabby.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
For them, that's about as gold as you get right there. This is written by Michael Palin and Terry Gilliam. I don't know what those guys have been in or who they're, whatever. Directed by Terry Gilliam. Also, just like who? I'm sure he's done something of note. Maybe somebody knows something about that. Now, what do you think is Terry Gilliam outside? Like, I joke, of course, but my guess is, you guys are huge Python fans, especially growing up in the time with which you did.
Yeah, huge. I my senior thesis was on how Monty Python influenced modern comedy. And
the strange thing is he was a chemistry major, folks.
And it was, hey, Todd, Bruce needs a punch up on that last joke. So I think that, like, I am uniquely suited. This is something very rare. We're in a very rarefied air here, where I am uniquely suited to speak to this movie and to speak to Monty Python, because I know everything there is to know about this movie, the behind the scenes stuff. I know everything about this movie, and I am usually the guy who has to quietly listen. And so if you've got a question about this movie, I can answer it, especially since this is really it's not Gilliam's first movie, and it's not even his first non-Python movie, but it's the first non-Python movie he made where he's trying to show you he is much more than just a former member of Monty Python. And
because even though we got a couple of members, it's not like we're throwing everybody into where it feels like a Monty Python production per se.
And right. I'm like a casual Monty Python fan. Probably don't know the ins and outs as well as you guys. Terry Gilliam was like the American Monty Python guy, right?
Yes.
Or am I way off on that? Okay.
No, he was
very embarrassed if I was wrong.
He was, but the problem is that he was in England for so long that he just basically became British. And so
okay.
They would constantly ask him questions about being an American for Monty Python's Flying Circus, and he wouldn't be able to answer the questions because he wouldn't know.
I don't live there. Okay. What do you want from me? Live in another state. I can't help it. All right. Well, let me sell everybody on this first of our time travel movies of March, because this sucker's got everything. We open on graphics that reportedly influenced Nintendo developers to work on the N64. Once Shiggy said that, he said, "Boys, get my markers." I really don't know how video games are made. We got adults that don't care. They don't care so much that they're jealous of others that could cook a meal in 6 seconds while they have to wait a whole 8 seconds. Oh, the humanity. We got their dorky little son that'll make British cousin Oliver look like the Australian Arthur Fonzarelli. We got a little people coming out of a wardrobe, so Bruce is on board. Anytime we can find somebody that's lower than him, Bruce is a happy camper. We fall out of the sky from a time and space warp that are coming from pushing a bedroom wall all the way back. Like I said, I haven't seen this movie before, but with all the same old plot beats like that, you've heard it a million times, of course. We got a jaunty rendition of Me and My Shadow. Bilbo Baggins is Napoleon, complete with hand in vest pocket and silly French accent. See, it isn't so hard, Joaquin Phoenix. Just do the voice. We got hard drinking, hard talking, hand stealing, portal taking, Middle Ages now with 100% more Shelley Duvall. Back to the Future. Now that was a time travel movie, but it was missing something. What was it? Oh, yeah, arm wrestling. And you thought you had to wait to the end for a Stallone and Norm Macdonald reference. Didn't think so. No, sir. John Cleese is Robin Hood, the role I'd least likely expect him to be in. We got a bug-eyed guy punching poor people out as they receive their stolen loot. I could not stop laughing. We got a game of Don't Ask the Boss questions, a bit of the old mind-controlled James Bond versus a Minotaur, polishing your horn. Polishing your horn. Yeah. A magic show of a frightening floor show, Titanic Panic interruptus. Mona from Who's the Boss shows up along with a coughing monster husband. A classic, everything is going to be fine. 2 seconds later, not fine. It's your ship is now a hat on the top of a fat guy. That's how not fine it is. We got dosing inaccuracies, invisible barriers, Jim Broadbent in a maze, rat eating, Mission Impossible jailbreak, Benson the dog. We turn a dude into a man pig and then later just into a pig. We got the creatures that look like from Saw meet General Grievous chasing our gang about. We got exploding your coworkers, Tankus Interruptus, Head Knife now with twirling cowboys turning into a pincushion, that old chestnut, Toxic Gas, Laser Tag, Zordon from the Power Rangers is here, Crushing Kenny Baker, an old man in a suit, and a fire and an ending only Gen Z would love. Mom and Dad are dead. This movie's got everything.
A weird ending for a kid's movie. I got to give you that.
Oh my!
But the weird part is that it is happy. Like, yes, his parents die at the end, but it's not a bad thing.
I think that's like a British tradition because if Harry Potter's aunt and uncle die, you're happy about that. I think it's a weird thing. British people hate their children and vice versa.
It is funny. Just and we'll kind of skip back and forth and we'll go better. But it is a weird ending that it is very much unlike most kids films where it's not like, oh well, you get to have this new family now. No, your family gone. They're gone. They're just out of here. You got to start over again, Bucko.
There's a bunch of stuff in this quote kids movie end quote that you'll never see in a kids movie today. Like when the giant steps on the troll's house and kills the dog and the baby and the mom and dad, and I was like, holy cow! I can't believe that just happened. Like because it had been a while since I saw this movie.
I do remember, Bookends of Fear when I watched this as a child. I haven't seen it in a long time.
It's so I guess I didn't realize just how much of a fairy tale this is until watching it this last time around, because I hadn't seen it in I want to say 15 years. And so seeing it this week with, now that we have so many bad movies under our belt, that like when this felt like substance when watching it, because it's trying to say so much by saying very little, and it's just such a joy to watch. Like, this movie is trying to tell you stuff, and it's not beating you over the head relentlessly like unfortunately like Rian Johnson's Star Wars movie, where it's like, okay, we get it. Yes, they're profiteering from war.
It's not good. Can we have something that we care about? That'd be nice.
But I mean, the fact of that you're tackling consumerism, his hatred for consumerism here. You're tackling how much it's either him or Palin, but I'm going to guess it's Gilliam hates bureaucracy, because bureaucracy is in almost every Terry Gilliam movie, and how it's usually the bad guy. It's not even the guy who's like the main villain. It's the thing he works for, which is way worse. Yeah, and that's kind of what this feels like here, because not only is the character whose name is Evil, which I always thought was great. Yeah, we're not even going to bother. We're just going to call him Evil. Fantastic. And he's actually when you look up the IMDb credits, he's called Evil Genius, but no one ever calls him Evil Genius in the movie. They just call him Evil. and whether it's but to get back to bureaucracy, like seeing that even when God, I'm sorry, we're hopping all over the place, but it's the thing that really opened my eyes this last time watching it is when you actually see God and he finally takes his form, like his final form, and he's just a dude in a gray suit.
Yeah, an old dude too, not an imposing dude.
And he's not even like, I mean, he's in charge, but kind of not at the same time. And he's like, he's explaining stuff to them. And he's kind of like, yeah, because I said to do that, and like, he's nonplussed by literally everything. I just find it so fascinating that the biggest bureaucracy in the world is heaven. Like to me, that is so eye-opening to me. And so clever.
You're familiar with like the old joke that in heaven the British or the English are the bureaucrats and the French are the cooks, and in hell it's the other way around.
Right.
Yeah, so I think it has some play on that old ditty. Now, do you guys think there was someone somewhere that was championing, or at least giving a note? How about we lose the little people?
No, never.
Not in 1980. They're not.
Definitely not, because there's twofold for why this is because one, it's a kids movie and you can't have grown pirates stealing a boy. Like, it just looks weird. Whereas if you have people of short stature taking him away, they seem to be on the same playing field, kind of.
It's like no one wants to say it, but you think the kid could probably beat one of them up if he had to. You know?
Well, they say it in the movie. They even say he's stronger than them.
Oh, that's true. That's like, oh yeah, by the way, he's basically like Michael Jordan over here. He does all the stuff.
And it goes back to even like the English medieval tradition of little people are funny. So in a kid's movie, you put them there. But
the court jester. Yeah.
I hadn't seen this in forever, and I would have sworn that Billy Barty was in this just because like that's how my mind works sometimes. I totally had a false memory of Billy Barty being part of the crew.
Let me tell you something. As somebody who came into this thing fresh and not knowing like literally anything, I didn't even know there were little people in this. I don't even think I knew that.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I literally think I knew the Criterion cover. Like and obviously
with the ship on it.
Yeah, that's about all I knew, quite frankly. Really, very few else outside of that. David Rappaport is just amazing.
Yeah,
he is so good. Your eye is drawn to him in every single scene that he is in. He is acting circles around like now. And granted, some of the other little people actors they're good. They're a lot better than they have any right to be. But he is so good. He makes the other guys look worse because he's that good. But I was so shocked. Everything from like just his looks at other people to his business with props and stuff. He just like, boy, did he have it. That guy just had charisma just oozing out, and you don't even care that the kid sucks because he's so darn good that you're just like, I'm following this guy.
And it's kind of cool to see Kenny Baker not in a trash basket.
I think, does anyone else think Kenny Baker was just peeved as all get out during this, that he wasn't like, that he didn't have old Rappaport's job there?
You want me to tell you? You want me to tell you the truth behind the scenes here?
Please.
Can I guess first?
Please.
Because I think that if Kenny Baker had the screen and stage presence of Rappaport, he never would have been hidden inside of a rubbish bin.
That's fair. Now, I will also say, according to Deep Roy, Kenny Baker, quite the alcoholic.
Yes,
that's Deep Roy. I don't know. I don't know from nothing, but he said like Deep Roy's like, man, I was in the R2D2 costume 3/4 of the time. Kenny Baker was drunk and couldn't get inside of it. That's what he said.
Well, that's and that's Golden Tony's problem with him too, is that he's an alcoholic. Like, if you read between the lines, that's the issue. So as much problems as we all have, with good reason, with Golden Tony, leave poor Kenny Baker alone. Anyway, so here's the deal on set, right? So Rappaport does not consider himself a specialized actor. He considers himself an actor, capital A actor, which he is. He is legitimately a capital A actor. Because of this, he does not want to be known as a little person. So he does not commingle with the other
no
people in this bad move
with any of them, and will not hang out with them after shooting. None of that. He is his own person. He steers clear, and so he kind of ostracized himself from this group of guys, which is a really bad move when you think of, like a lot of these little people are Elstree guys. Like, they worked on everything that Elstree did that was shot at Elstree, and Rappaport didn't.
And a little known fact, Rappaport was the inspiration for the Mickey character in Seinfeld.
Is that right?
No, he was not. But
I could see it though. I could see it because that dude is a good actor,
glad
man.
You derailed the thought so you could make that joke. However, so when it comes time for those scenes in the third act, at the beginning of the third act, where the other little people are really mad at him, they didn't have to act. So that's why the best acting happens from all the other little people in that scene, because they are legitimately so mad at him that they're all yelling at him. And it's not that weird like mugging thing that they all are doing throughout the rest of the movie. Even Kenny Baker, by the way, like they're all like, oh, like it's a silent film. Most of the little people actors.
Now, and not for nothing though, like in an odd sense, their roles for so many years had been relegated to that almost silent kind of performer kind of thing, because it's like, well, we're not going to let you use your voice, and like all we can do. Look, what the heck? Okay. But so there's it's just weird. It's a weird move. I got distracted. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
What was that thing?
So we're on Zoom. We record the show on Zoom. I gave a thumbs up, and like all of a sudden, the computer just gives a little bubble thumbs up coming out of my head. What the heck is that? I've never seen that before. Okay.
So you can see yourself. You can see yourself talk over Zoom.
Yeah, you can hit it to where it, like whatever's activated comes up.
I couldn't possibly do that. That's why I don't do it. Is that I don't want to know. I do not want to know.
I'd need to know when the mic is engaged, so I can make sure that am I being heard? Okay, good. But listen, I knew nothing about this going in. This sucker starts out, well, again, I think if I was like 7 years old and saw this opening scene and everything, I'd have been like, I'm out of here, bro. Because that's frightening for a kid. That all of a sudden, like your house goes in, these little dudes pop out, and then you can, in your own physical house, this is like, that's what makes it weird and scary for kids. This is a house. This is the place that you live. And the thing that you see there all the time, this wall, it now pushes back into infinity and then off into this, great void. That's some scary crap, right? And then a big giant head is screaming after you as you go there. Dude, this would have been no bueno for Adam when he was a boy.
I didn't see this movie till later. Bruce, you didn't see this movie in the movie theater, did you?
Oh no, not in the theater, but I saw it when I was young enough that it scared me.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't a kid at all when I saw this. Like I was probably a teenager, but I could totally see where this would be really scary for a little kid. Like there's too many. Sorry, go ahead.
I would have been between 4th and 6th grade, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And like I said, I saw it with commercials. So back then it would take a couple years for something to get onto that kind of cable where it had commercials past the HBO and everything. But the horse running through the bedroom at the beginning always scared me. The guy with like the antlers on his helmet or whatever.
Yep.
And then I did pretty good until the end when the people in like the black cloaks with like cattle skulls for heads are running around, and then the guy's like skull cap pops open and the knife comes out of his head. All that stuff was a little scary to me there. So it was like bookended in fear, but I enjoyed the middle.
That's what you meant. That's what you meant by that.
Yeah. And it's been so long since I'd seen it that I really didn't expect to remember a lot. But then once it got going, I had some crystal clear memories of a few of those scenes.
But I was, again, one of those things. Do we know? Okay, this is an odd question. And I'm sure it had to do with like the consumerism portion of it that Sean mentioned there and everything. But like this is set in modern or like regular concurrent day.
It's modern. It's modern for the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Modern for the time, England.
I just thought it was interesting them to, when they're talking about making their dinners in 8 seconds, you do start to kind of go like, okay, like I'm thinking Back to the Future, putting in that pizza into the oven, and just 5 seconds later, a full pizza comes out. And
but that's when consumer grade microwaves were brand new, and that's kind of the people's conception of it was, you make a turkey dinner in 8 seconds, which of course it wasn't quite like that. We know that now. And the hedge clipper with 2 speeds, like what do you need more than one? You ever need to like slow down when you're clipping those hedges? I don't know. I don't clip as many hedges as some people.
I like to just gingerly bat them about until they decide to fall off of the bush, just kind of, hey man, just take it off.
You guys think Tim Burton has seen this movie?
Oh my God.
Maybe.
Because that end where the knife is coming out of Evil's head and he's spinning around with the ropes, that seems to have heavily influenced that scene in Beetlejuice where his head pops open and the little carousel comes out.
Yes, without a doubt. My favorite, like, I don't know how subtle this joke is, but it is fairly subtle. My favorite subtle joke in this movie is at the very end of the movie where the house is on fire and everybody's getting out and Connery's character comes and saves the kid as a firefighter, and as he's as he's taking the kid outside past his parents make it out, and they've got like an appliance in their arms because they wanted to save the appliances before their child, which is just fine. Like no one says anything really, like it's not mentioned, and I just found it so like such a great capper to end that joke. And also it gives the movie permission to kill them in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
It's really great.
That is a pretty good one there. Are you guys familiar with how the character Agamemnon was written in the script?
No.
I know that they wrote it and they set it when Palin and Gilliam were writing the script, that I think it was Gilliam was like, hey, let's say that he takes off his helmet and it's Sean Connery. And then Sean Connery ended up taking the role. Am I right?
Well, the way that they wrote it is he takes off his helmet, revealing Sean Connery or someone of equal but cheaper stature.
Right.
That's how it's written.
Right.
And I always thought that was great. And Sean Connery did it because he liked Monty Python, like, below his normal asking price. And then he also got points in the gross, which I doubt that really came to much.
He was probably there less than a week.
Oh yeah, man. I would be
2-3 days
if he 3 days tops.
He filmed it in between scenes of Zardoz, or whatever that one was called.
Zardoz.
He was wearing them shorty shorts, boy. Yeah,
a lot of hair on that face there. I don't remember him having that much black hair.
He looked good.
Yeah, my wigdar was going off. But yeah, he did look great, man. And it's so funny to see him in that in between phase, where he's not like, one of the like 5 most handsome men in the world, but he's also not an old man yet. Like that in between phase.
In between James Bond and Indiana Jones's father.
You're right. I love in between Connery, man.
I call this his Burt Reynolds phase.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's perfect.
You nailed it.
He's got perfect. He's like that perfect Burt Reynolds age and everything. It looks just like him. It's good.
Yeah, he with the exception, like I think he's great in this movie. Legitimately, like kind of not his type of character that he usually plays, and I think that he's great, and he even contributed to the movie itself. Like he said, hey, it might be a good idea at the end of this movie if I come back as a firefighter, and they wrote it into the script.
That's pretty cool of him to do that too, because sometimes you have the idea that they want to do less work, not more.
Well, he specifically, right? Because he's one of those guys is like, look, I'm here for the money.
Let me do my Italian accent for Highlander.
Should be real strange for a child whenever. Well, I mean, I guess it's not like he's in America. I was starting to think that he was in America, and all of a sudden, this guy, the Scottish accent comes in for a firefighter. But it's probably not nearly as odd and.
If he wasn't shook by the Greek guy having a Scottish accent, the firefighter is no big deal. That was speak English with a Scottish accent in ancient Greece. That's my kind of time travel.
That was another thing that Connery said, was that when they were on set, he realized that the kid was completely starstruck and kind of dumb around Connery. So Connery's like, we're going to shoot everything where I'll do all my scenes later so that the kid can get used to being around Sean Connery. And so they did it. That's how they did it. And so they had his stand-in at first. And he did it on purpose because he tried to do the scenes first with the kid, and the kid was just like hamna 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 hamna.
It's fun. Oh my god!
Right. And so in a very rare moment of Sean Connery being a human being, he was like, "Listen, this kid's having a hard time. Why don't you have my stand-in come in? They'll shoot all his scenes first. He'll get used to being on camera. He'll get used to me being around, and then once we feel like that's happening, then we'll switch out, and I'll start doing that." And they did, and that's exactly how they shot it. And the kid ended up, because the chemistry between him and Sean Connery is kind of amazing, even though the kid is not a great actor.
I think we can all agree if we were going to hang out with any era of Sean Connery, we would want it to be this Time Bandits nice guy Sean Connery.
Oh yeah, yes, for sure. You wanted to hang out with latter day Stallone. You want to hang out with Burt Reynolds era Sean Connery. Mm-hmm. and Timothy Dalton, literally anytime. You can hang out with that guy. Anytime.
1980 was like the time to just hang out with all those dudes. If you did that, you'd probably be all right. It'd be a good little time.
And I still say bosom buddies era Peter Scolari is the best.
Oh man, he's really on fire in Newhart though.
He was too stuck up then.
Let's talk about our different kind of time periods here and everything, and great little conceits. That also lead to funny things, and I think this is a great thing for Gilliam, because what we can do here is cordon off all these little pieces and stuff, and you don't have to have this giant sort of thing. You can have a bunch of these small things, and again, coming from your sketch comedy and stuff like that, able to condense those things and make little milieus out of each one of them going into the next thing, and it's super fun. So when we end up in Robin Hood, and I love the idea that we've got, the obvious idea of Robin Hood steals from the rich and gives to the poor. Well, our thieves don't want to be given to the poor. They want to be given to them. And that's a lot of fun to be had with that. And John Cleese, just with his John Cleese-ness of it and the oversizedness of that hat and everything.
Yes, the hat deserves more conversation than John Cleese. I'm sorry.
Yes.
No, hard disagree.
That's great.
It's the thing we even talked about last week, Bruce, where it was like the thing where you get to be the really nice guy as long as you surround yourself with people who are monsters. And that's literally what they're doing in this scene. Robin Hood is the very nice guy around everybody because he can be, because everyone around him is so awful. And it's such a great scene. Love it.
It is cool. I do like the henchmen for, I guess they're called the merry men.
Yeah, the hoods. Oh yes, you're in his merry men. That's right. Yeah.
I like how they're not quite so merry in this incarnation, but I do want to just last thing I'll say about the hat is it's like you've already got John Cleese there, so like putting that hat on John Cleese is pretty close to putting a hat on a hat.
Yeah, pretty close. But I think everything that everything about the entire Robin Hood scene works. Like I can't say that for the entire movie, but from beginning to end of that whole scene in the Sherwood Forest, like every bit of that works.
The jokes. Who's the guy with Shelley Duvall?
That's Michael Palin.
Okay, that's what I thought, but once again, not the Monty Python guy, so I can get these things wrong. But some of the just drop dialogue, it's like they have those jokes for the parents who brought their kids to see the movie when those two are talking about, does he need a special device for them to be romantic? No, he got that fixed up, and all those kind of like little drop things.
Oh, yeah.
But it was also, I forgot that Shelley Duvall was in this, because in my memory, Shelley Duvall was in exactly 2 movies, Popeye and The Shining, and like nothing else.
She's great in this too. I didn't realize just how much you can make her look like the girl with the pearl earring, because they do it perfectly in this movie, man.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing. I think having it be Shelley Duvall acting against Michael Palin is probably a great idea, because when Palin has a tendency to be able to overtake every scene he's in, unless he's up against somebody who's just a master. Like, people love A Fish Called Wanda. They love that. Like, the people who see that movie love that movie. But the reason why they love that movie, really, secretly, is Michael Palin. Because Michael Palin is the best character in that movie. But when he's up against Kevin Kline's character, that character totally works 100%. That movie is, those scenes with Palin and Kevin Kline are just magnificent. However, when Michael Palin is in a room with somebody who isn't as strong a performer, and I don't mean actor, I mean performer, then he's going to overtake your scene. So being in these scenes with Shelley Duvall, who's such a great actor, it kind of like he can kind of get away with everything because she can keep up with him. So when you see them later when they're on the Titanic and there's all that wordplay about like he's clearly trying to talk about her when he's describing what it's like to be on a boat and being in the ocean, and she keeps saying things that are sexual when describing a woman, but not the ocean, and it keeps happening over and over again. If there is a lesser actress in that scene is eye-rolling and awful. but because it's Shelley Duvall, the scene is amazing. It's so good.
I'm glad that she was in this and that I watched this as an adult because, the memories of her in, Robert Altman's Popeye, not a top tier film, I think most people would say. Her performance as Olive Oil didn't show off her best skills. And then, what Kubrick just beat her half to death with a cricket bat or something to get the performance out of her in The Shining. So I never saw her really like in a good zone like I get to see her here. So I thought that was kind of cool. It gave me an appreciation for an actor that I wouldn't have had otherwise.
She got hurt on set doing stuff on this show though.
Oh wow.
She like physically got hurt.
It's probably that giant.
I like the I like the idea that we have a couple throughout time and space and everything who we keep running into. It's a great gag then that, when we do run into them on the Titanic, it's just as we ran into them in the Middle Ages, dropping straight on top of them, just ruining their time. There's something about that that's great of a galactic couple that can't get away no matter what time or place that it possibly is. They're going to get screwed by this little gang.
There's I listened to this interview with Michael Palin, and by the way, this should give you an example of like, oh wow, this is how much this guy has worked. Is that he co-wrote the script to this, and the interviewer, because the thing everybody talks about with this movie is there's only 2 scenes with Michael Palin and Shelley Duvall. Was there supposed to be a third scene? It's the question everyone asks Michael Palin when it comes to this movie, and he couldn't remember. He's like, the interviewer is like, there's a third scene, right? And he's like, it happened so long ago. It would make sense that we did write a third scene that we were in. I just don't remember writing it. Maybe there's a budgetary issue. I don't really remember. But there had to have been a third scene, which I just find fascinating. He's done so much work. He can't remember writing Time Bandits. Get out of here, man. It's crazy.
It is odd because, it's comedy, music. Your rules of 3 apply to stuff.
Yeah.
It just does. And the fact that we do only come to these characters twice, and what would have made it more of that, that cosmic couple that we kind of keep coming back to and ruining their day and everything, would have been cemented more with the third outing. So.
I mean, you got to think that there's probably a scene at the end where they're in heaven, and all of our time bandits go back to work, and they're there probably, and that's where the movie ends.
If this was a Mel Brooks movie, we would have got that third scene.
Oh, for sure. Yes. Mel Brooks also though. Listen, my movie is going to cost $5 million. And it's going to make 30, and Hollywood goes, absolutely. Here's your $5 million, Mel.
Yep.
Not so much with Terry Gilliam. I need $100 million to make this movie, and Hollywood's like, we don't even like this idea if we give you $5 million. What are you talking about?
We don't want to give you nothing, much less all of that. No.
Look, this will probably be the last film your studio ever makes, but it'll be worth it.
And I mean, that is the cry and shame with Terry Gilliam, is that he has so many movies that he's directed or written and directed where it's just like, wow, this movie is great. But what's his second biggest hit? Is it The Fisher King? Probably.
Oh, I couldn't tell you.
It's probably The Fisher King.
As far as money goes and everything,
yeah,
I'd say that's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
sadly, it's one that it's easy to forget it's a Gilliam movie. I mean, it's not so stylistic.
Oh yeah,
and that's kind of the thing with him, right? Was that he was like he was kind of like trying to play ball, but then his Terry Gilliamness wouldn't let him. Where listen, I'm going to make one movie for the studio, then I'm going to make my movie, then I'll make another network or another studio movie, and so we got that in between time of he makes Fisher King, and then he was supposed to make The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, and then he makes 12 Monkeys. But because they ran over on The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, they have that awesome documentary about the making of that movie that never existed, and then he goes on to make 12 Monkeys next. It's that weird thing with him where dude, just just shoot in studio, man. Like, what are you doing? Why are you on location? Your stuff is so intricate. Just shoot on stages. I am a huge Terry Gilliam fan. I want to see your next movie. Just be smart about the movie you're making.
Nah.
Oh man. Man, it's so angering to me because it's like think of all of the Terry Gilliam movies we lost like in the early 90s that he could have made if he wasn't lost in the desert just throwing the studio's money into a big burning fire.
Hey, if they'll give it to you, you know.
but that's my point. Like
Yeah.
we probably lost 3 awesome Terry Gilliam movies when he was at the peak of his storytelling. I mean, like a Terry Gilliam movie now is not the same, does not pack the same punch as something from like, you know, from the early 80s to about like the late 90s, right? Anything after that, but because I know he's made 2 or 3 movies since then, and I'm like, I can't even name them. that's how little I think of those movies. So we've lost like probably 3 awesome projects because he couldn't keep it together. Like nope, we're doing things my way. Why? It's not working.
I name checked him earlier in the episode, but I guess the same kind of thing could be lightly said about Joaquin Phoenix during his I'm Not Here Anymore phase.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was just like, there were like 3 or 4 years where you gave us 0 movies because you were, you know, messing about doing this silly, you know, fake documentary and everything, which was fun. I mean, I liked it. I thought it was great watching that because it was like, I felt like when I was watching it, I knew what they were doing. So like that's why it was entertaining to me because I go like, oh, he's playing one crazy character piece here in the real world out and all this kind of jazz and stuff. But yeah, we probably missed out on at least 4 or 5 good Joaquin Phoenix performances while he was just out, you know, messing about with Casey Affleck.
Yeah, I was gonna say with his buddy. You know, from an outsider's perspective on all that, because I didn't pay enough attention to what was happening in pop culture at that point. Like it's around that time I start like kind of like, oh, pop culture isn't nearly as important to me as it once was.
Yeah.
And so just like randomly every so often, like he would come up into my purview and I'd be like, oh, I guess Joaquin Phoenix is crazy now. Oh, that's too bad. He was pretty good.
Yeah.
That was it. And so later on, you're like, oh, it was all a bit. And I'm like, oh yeah, you got me.
Yeah.
Man. Good job.
His bit on Letterman, his interview on Letterman with the gum and everything, just like, oh gosh, it's so brilliantly just bad that you want to, because I remember watching Letterman when he was doing that, and it was just like you were crawling out of your skin, and the whole time I'm just going, this got to be a bit, right?
Is Letterman in on it?
I don't think Letterman's in on it.
That's tough to tell because like normally you can kind of tell Letterman's got a little bit of tells and stuff to him. It feels like he doesn't know.
I mean, it's right up there with Crispin Glover's wig wearing Letterman interview.
Because he definitely wasn't in on that. He with the Crispin Glover stuff like that. He was definitely not in on that.
And then the Harvey P. Car meltdown, definitely not in on that one.
Not in on that one either.
Yeah, I think he was fresh. I don't think it was cooked on his end because Phoenix, he is giving some really weird answers and just being kind of like, and he's all over the place. But I mean, he gave so much. Like he gained a crap ton of weight. He looked terrible. Like there's something about it though. As much as I complain that we've lost those performances, there's something about it's just like, I don't know, you did something really weird and interesting, so I kind of got to give you a little credit.
Well, you're not wrong.
Yeah, it is what it is. But again, this was another like. So let's jump to a couple other spots here. Things that I've wildly found interesting is like when the boat. I didn't see this one coming from a gajillion miles away. Your boat is being worn as a hat.
Yeah.
I was like, holy moly, what's going on in this film now? I'm like, but at the same time, Terry Gilliam, so I kind of know.
That felt like one of those animated sequences from Flying Circus come to life, done in live action.
Yeah. You know, there's a couple of moments in this movie, even though what I said at the top of the show was it feels like Terry Gilliam is trying to show everybody I'm more than just Monty Python. But there's a lot of Monty Python-ness to this movie still. And I don't mean just John Cleese and Michael Palin. I mean, you know, like the story structure of this, there's a lot of bits in it. There's a lot of like like just like vignettes of meeting people and then never seeing these people again. Like it feels a lot like it's almost structured like a sketch comedy show more than a movie. Although there's a lot of moviness there, so it does still feel like a movie, but it feels almost like we're trying to let go, but this is where we're comfortable, so we're still going to do this thing. And the other part to this is the ideas of this, right? So like when you first see God's head coming down the hallway, that's all Gilliam animation. Like I don't know whether he did it or not, but boy, that sure feels like Terry Gilliam to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other part to this is the way that they set up visual jokes in this feels so very much like a Monty Python movie, more so than the old Flying Circus, because by the movies they start understanding how important the filmmaking is to their jokes. Because Cleese would constantly rail against Gilliam and Jones about why are we setting up the shot for this long? How many jokes are in that?
Yeah.
And so they would have to show him. Like they literally would have to show him and be like, look, John, this is the reason why we're setting this up. And he'd be like, oh, okay. And so like it kind of made them stronger storytellers working their way through those first two Python movies. And now we're here. You know, they did Gilliam does Jabberwocky first and then he does this movie. And it feels to me like it's all set up so he can make the movie that he wants to make Brazil. Like he's had Brazil in his head for probably 10, 15 years at this point. And that's the movie he really wants to make. But to make the proof of concept, which is Time Bandits, now I can make Brazil next.
Yeah, and I feel like he's got to, like, this also could easily function as, lack of a better word, an effects reel for him to just show like, hey, I can look at, because he clearly likes special effects because there's so many really neat, interesting, like you mentioned with the giant crushing the house and everything. That's like 3-4 plates deep. It's good looking stuff that they shot super well, showing him, like filming him in slow motion and playing that kind of back as everything else is going gives it a weird, eerie kind of feel and stuff. So like, there's so many like tiny special effects stuff in here as things go about as well, which I think basically was just like, listen, I handled it for this. I can handle all these crazy things that I'm wanting to do in Brazil.
And coming back to like some of what we talked about before with the ambitions that he had, there's actually a Wikipedia page called Terry Gilliam's Unrealized Projects, and it is not a short page.
Wow. I mean, got to check that out.
Yeah.
That's Wikipedia?
Yeah, it's just Wikipedia, Terry Gilliam's Unrealized Projects.
Oh, I'm totally writing that down.
Man, that's got to be a pip if you find out that exists of your stuff, doesn't it?
He wanted to make a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, referring back to something we were mentioning in the interstitials.
Well, to get to it, you know the story of the Time Bandits TV show, right?
Wasn't aware.
I know that he wanted to make one.
He was for years trying to get it off the ground, and in 2019. A filmmaker named Taika Waititi got together with Apple, and they are working on a Time Bandits television show as I speak to you two gentlemen.
Terry Gilliam wanted to direct Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events.
Wow. That would have been great. That would have been a much better movie, but he would never would have worked with Jim Carrey.
I'm about to say him and Jim Carrey would be loggerheads like nobody's business, I would imagine.
And Jim Carrey it's basically his last really truly great performances of those movies.
Following that, he was considered for The Truman Show.
Wow, really?
Yeah. So he's got some interesting things he never made. Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
No way. He could never have done that.
He turned it down because I guess he realized he couldn't make it.
Well, yeah, because Robert Zemeckis says, listen, guys, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, and he was right.
And he was darn right.
So there's our Tim Burton connection, right?
He turned out what?
The Addams Family. Did Tim Burton do the Addams Family?
Not with Raul Julia.
He did. He did the show that came out recently, right?
Yes, he didn't. The Raul Julia Addams Family is the DP for the Coen brothers.
Barry Levinson.
Not Levinson, Barry
Sonnenfeld. Damn it.
Sonnenfeld. Yeah,
I read
like
his
Coen
book
brothers.
and I screwed it up. Sorry, Barry. I got your book, baby.
Man, that dude had the greatest run of like a string of movies that to then never make another good movie after those string of movies I've ever seen in my life. Have you ever seen anything like that guy? The guy makes Get Shorty. He makes the 2 Addams Family movies. He makes Men in Black, the first one.
He did.
There's got to be. I think there's one more that's a really great movie.
Yeah,
that he
to
made.
Smoochie is the other one. I think.
I hate that movie.
I hate it too. I hate it too. I don't like it, but I'm fairly certain. Good book. Read his book.
Wild Wild West. Him and John Peters worked together on that one.
Oh, that's
Oh,
true.
boy.
That's true. That was his last big hurrah there. Hey, it became that movie. He's got that going for him.
But that just goes to my point, which is that like I've never seen a director who was just so correct with so many movies to then not be correct ever again with another movie.
Well,
It almost feels like that thing that happened to the director we were talking about last week, Bruce, the one where his partner took off, the guy that he was making movies with. Matthew Vaughn. Where Matthew Vaughn's partner takes off, movie making partner takes off, and then Matthew Vaughn's movies fall off a cliff. It kind of feels like that.
I don't think
Barry Sonnenfeld did make the Kevin Spacey classic 9 Lives. He directed that.
Oof.
That was his anticipated follow-up to Men in Black 3.
Well, before we get to our final review here of Time Bandits, I almost forgot what we were talking about for a half second. Time Bandits, we have to ask ourselves how this Terry Gilliam time traveling dreaming movie relates back 1-to-1 with Sylvester Stallone.
Why, thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement.
Oh.
Hello, Mr. Stallone. Del Baker is a stuntman that started his career way back in 1964 and officially took his last performance as a stunt actor in 2004 on something called The Libertine. To give you an idea just how long he was in the business for, his first big break came when he performed stunts in the 1968 Clint Eastwood movie Where Eagles Dare, and one of his last jobs was the Clive Owen, Keira Knightley movie King Arthur. 40 years of doing stunts. Del Baker's bones must be mostly powder. But before you can ask, what's your man got to do with me? I'm getting to it. 1995 was a big year for old Del Baker because he was the stunt coordinator on a show called Bottom. Please save your jokes till the end. And he performed stunts on a different television series called Peak Practice. But he capped off the year by performing stunts on a movie called Judge Dredd. Judge Dredd is one of the movies we've spoken about most on this show because we started out exclusively as a superhero podcast. And when you're in that lane, you tend to look for movies that have been forgotten. Movies like 1995's Judge Dredd, starring you, Sylvester Stallone. There are a few things to recommend this movie, like Diane Lane plays Judge Hershey in this movie. Yowza. Why she took the role is beyond me. I'm guessing blackmail was involved. Also, Max von Sydow is Judge Fargo, playing the role he was meant for, septuagenarian authority figure. But by far, the best thing about Judge Dredd is Armand Assante playing Rico. Not only is the man chewing the scenery, but he treats the sets like it's an all-you-can-eat buffet, and he's sick of being on a diet. I could go further on this topic, but if you're listening to this, chances are you've heard enough out of me. This week's Stallone connection is 40-year veteran of stunts, Del Baker. I hope to hear from you soon. Your pal, the Hartford Hellion.
Speaking of stunts, I saw a trailer for the new Stuntman movie with old Gosling in it. With
the
Fall Guy?
Fall Guy, rather. But oh my word!
If they don't have the original theme song worked into that movie, I will cry.
There is no way that doesn't make an appearance. There's just no way. It's the one thing people remember, that and Heather Locklear. Heather Thomas.
It's probably Lee Major's best song he ever recorded.
Probably.
Got a little Emily Blunt action in there. How do you not want to see that? It's got something for the guys and the girls. Come on. Bring yourself on down. Bruce, where does Time Bandits fall on the Robin rating system for you?
Ton of nostalgia. This is a movie I saw as a kid. Watching it again, I felt like I was back in those old days watching it, like I used to. So it's got that nostalgia value on its side. I consider it a classic. I think it's one of those touchstone movies that Gen X people throw up and talk about. Like when you were a kid, what did you think of Time Bandits? So I have to go Dick Grayson on this with the fully acknowledging that I'm bringing some of my own biases into it. I can't separate the emotion from the intellectual side of my analysis of this particular movie.
Fair enough. Sean?
Yeah, for me, it's a Dick Grayson as well. Not only does it bring back memories of me being a child seeing this movie, but it also brings back the memories of my senior thesis and how much actual work went into something that seemed fun at first. But I really love this movie. I think it's a stepping stone to one of the 10 greatest movies of all time, and you can see its DNA in this movie. And you do not have to be a fan of Monty Python to like Terry Gilliam movies, which is great if you like spending time with women, because women do not love Monty Python, but they can watch Terry Gilliam movies. And so that was kind of my sneak thing of like, yeah, I'm this nerdy guy who likes comedy, but also I'm this nerdy guy who really likes art. So like it kind of worked in my favor. And so for me, this is a Dick Grayson. I love this movie.
Yeah, as I said, this was my first time seeing this and just trying to get off the list there and everything. Growing up, I was like my kind of like go-to movies that are like this are your like Never-Ending Story. Like watch that one. That was big, heavy rotation. That's the closest that I could come to something like this. That and I because I wasn't like a big Labyrinth guy. Again, there's enough little scary stuff in that to where tiny little wussy Adam is not hopping on board for any of that stuff. But so it's a little tougher for me watching it now, obviously with the sensibilities of the 21st century and all that kind of stuff. But I really liked it. I felt like it might have been a little bit too long. You probably could edit some stuff out. You could tighten it up just a touch and make it, really kind of sing. But performance-wise and everything, everybody was just so good. It was enough of those things. And I can sit there and go, oh yeah, if I was a kid and in the right mindset and everything and wasn't a scared little baby kid, I probably really would have liked this. And I want to give myself a little room to grow because I want to see it a couple more times to give myself that more familiar kind of feeling with it and everything. And I feel like this is something that could grow in time. So I'm going to say Tim Drake for me. Just because I feel like it's got potential to go higher, if indeed, which I think it will be, a movie that I continue to watch, over the years. I would say, but go ahead.
Adam, I would say to you, Adam, that like your assessment is your assessment. I mean, it's kind of unfair that you're watching this movie on first view with two guys who grew up with.
Oh yeah.
And very much like this is part of my DNA, this movie, and it's probably part of Bruce's too a little bit. And so like to have like it's kind of unfair for you, like, hey, watch this thing Cold that we love so much and tell us that you love it as much as we do. Bye.
Now, and there's some things like The Goonies was another one that that those were my kind of movies right there. But when you have somebody like David Rappaport in this, again, I glom onto that performance because it's just so darn good. He's so naturalistic in everything that he's doing. Just like, and again, you can tell that he's a step above his castmates. You really can, because like everything he's doing is just like is an actor's choice. And
he's really great,
and not kind of a stunt casting choice, if you will. He's really delivering. Good. He's not like the first guy to do that, nor the last guy, of course. But it's nice, very nice. That is it, everybody. We got our first of many time traveling movies out of the way here, but don't worry, we got more than that coming up. Bruce, tell the folks a little story. What do you think?
Hey,
what was the parting shot for us today?
My senior project involved turtle hemoglobin in the Rio Grande River. So you can go look that one up somewhere. Just look for T.S. elegans, T. gagey hybridization, Rio Grande. knock yourself out.
You know what?
It'll help you go right to sleep.
You know what the best part about this is that new Apple, the new Apple podcast thing. You can actually just go ahead, pause that, highlight what he said, and then be able to just paste that into a document and find out what he was talking about. Because you like me, you don't know what that is or whatever, but you can. It's going to transcribe it out, and you can do that now. It's wow, the 21st century. Sean, what else?
For me, with my senior thesis, when you are someone of average intelligence like me, and are you okay?
I'm fine. I had a little cough. It's okay. We're cool.
Went down the wrong tube?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, buddy.
Oh, good.
Adam Porteous almost drowned in front of our very eyes.
He died from a Diet Coke. It's the saddest thing ever.
Man, when you are someone who considers themselves artsy, you have to do things like your project, your senior project in modern European history is to do your project on Monty Python. So that's basically what I did, and the teacher loved it, or the professor loved it. The kids not so much. The kids were like, "Oh wow, Can you hear that?"
Yeah. What? No.
I hear you.
No. In the background, can you hear my background?
No, don't hear your neighbor.
Okay, very good. Because there is somebody.
He's right behind you, Sean.
There is somebody screaming. Okay. We have another show. We have another podcast called 30 Questions, where each week we ask 30 questions of some nerdy property, whether it be your Star Wars or your Marvel. So check that out. Wherever you listen to podcasts, just put in 30 questions, and our podcast will be the first one to come up.
It will. I'm going to give a shout out to some friends of ours. The guys over at the All American Spook Show just celebrated their about a week ago their 200th episode. So
nice,
not too shabby. When you get up in that area and stuff, you've been at it for a minute, and so
that's awesome.
Good stuff there. Go, and they're covering a whole bunch of interesting stuff. So if you're a horror fan, go check out our buddies over at All American Spook Show. That is it, everybody. The March Madness time travel continues on next week as we're covering Sean's film. Sean, what do you got for us?
Oh, we're going to be watching Safety Not Guaranteed.
From 2012, you got your Colin Trevorrow, you got your Duplass brother, you got your Aubrey Plaza, you got everything that I'm looking for, if I'm going to be honest with you, in time travel. So it's like, you add all those things together, you got a bouillabaisse of greatness, and that's what we're going to be talking about next week. Safety Not Guaranteed from 2012. That'll do it, everybody. Join us for Safety Not Guaranteed next week. For the Hartford, Helly, Sweet Sean Kovacs from the internet, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Porteous. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.